If anyone ever comes poking around, looking for the treasure, he told me to pull them apart.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Star Wars Skeleton Crew Episode 4 video. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs and references, revealing a bunch more details about what happened to the different 9 jewels of the Old Republic, like the 9 planets that exist in the formation with Achrann. So we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the episodes. There's a bunch of big stuff happening this week that I'll talk about at the end of the video. The episode title was Can't Say I Remember No Achrann, which is a reference to SN33's reply each time the kids ask him how to get to Achrann or if he remembers Achrann, revealing at the end of the episode that his original captain actually forced him to remove all memory of Achrann from his memory banks and then destroy the actual coordinates physically that were on one of the towers, and it's possible his original captain did the same thing on the other 8 planets so that all the coordinates to Achrann have been destroyed in similar towers like this. So it winds up being one of those grammar jokes, like grammar is important, where you put the comma is important in a sentence. What he's really been saying is, I can't say that I remember no Achrann, not that he doesn't know where it is. He definitely remembers, which Fern tries to use her trick of overriding the droid and what it does, with him also remembering Achrann, and on top of that, remembering his captain's subsequent orders if someone did do this to him, like did reactivate his memory of Achrann, that he would rip them apart. This is probably the order in which he did things. So the original captain killed the other crew members of his that saw the coordinates to Achrann. Then he probably told SN33 that he was going to wipe his memory, and if anyone came along and tried to dig the coordinates out of his memory banks, then to pull them apart, then had him destroy the coordinates, then ordered him to forget anything related to Achrann in what just happened. So really this became a trick of them asking SN33 the right series of questions in the right order. Now their big trick is trying to find a way to reactivate him when he doesn't pull them apart. Like, how do they fix his memory so that he doesn't pull them apart? Probably some really fast talking from Fern. And based on the episode, what they're also implying, next big reveal, is that all the 9 planets, the jewels of the Old Republic, were identical. Like all the same structures, the same houses, the same designs, everything was meant to be the same. Based on the 2 different factions that we see in the episode, it also seems like it's all the same races on each of the planets too. So they're almost saying that one of the great works of the Old Republic, like this great work they keep referring to, involved copies of different civilizations on each of the planets that were meant to be identical, like planned communities of the same groups of people. So it's almost like the actual great work is like just a huge social experiment. And at some point on this Achrann planet, things devolved into civil war and it tore the planet apart, and these different factions rose up in the generations after that. When Kim said that the other 8 planets were destroyed, this is probably what she was referring to, where like the societies devolved in different ways into like Lord of the Flies situations. That's kind of the vibe on Achrann. They're kind of like a Lord of the Flies society now with different factions. The actual opening scene starts with the kids going back to Achrann, but notice as they're flying through the green nebulous gases that are similar in the orbit around Achrann, around their home planet, we actually find out they arrive on Achrann, one of the other planets. You can kind of tell what's going on when they pass by all these broken satellites in orbit meant to be similar to the satellites in their orbit, only on their home planet, their satellites are still working. This might have been part of the reason why the society on their planet devolved. Like either they erupted into civil war and that led to the destruction of their satellite system protecting the planet, or the other thing happened first, like the satellites were destroyed and something outside, some outside force caused them to devolve into civil war. But one of the other really important things during the episode that you probably detected is that because the planet's designs, like all the buildings, everything are meant to be identical, a lot of the things they discover, like the secrets, the hidden turrets, the supervisor's tower, is probably identical on their home planet Achrann, and they'll be able to use that when they eventually go home. So imagine back on their home planet where their parents are just like living peacefully, trying to do what they're told to do. There's all these hidden weapons all over the place. And they just forgot about them because they've grown up for many, many generations not questioning it, and nobody's been talking about it. So there's no one that's still alive that remembers any of that stuff. My early theory now, too, is that they'll pay this off by having Neil use the gun turret on the top of their school, which also will probably still work, against the pirates when they eventually catch up looking for Jude Law. You have to remember that they're trying to get him, like they're off in the distance trying to tail them to Achrann eventually.
Put a bounty on his head! I want him groveling at my feet. And those pups!
There are a couple people and groups that they reference in the episode that haven't been featured in Star Wars before, so I think they created some backstory, some lore that they'll explain in further episodes. But when they arrive and Jude Law thinks that they're at Atten, he gets surprised and says, Renaud's ghost. That's not a character from Star Wars lore, so they might explain that he was some famous Jedi in the past, or maybe he was like a famous pirate at some point. There's more jokes about him being subordinate to the kids, like you're not allowed in the cockpit, no adults in the cockpit. We find out there's some weird autopilot system that's running on the planet that causes the ship to try and land somewhere, but SM-33 overrides it. That means that back on Atten, there's also probably a similar system controlling the ships that try to enter the planet. Remember, anything that they find working on this Achrann planet probably has a version that's also working on their home planet of Atten. They land in the wreckage of a neighborhood that looks similar to their neighborhood. They go to a house that looks just like Fern's house, but it's all decrepit, like it looks like it was destroyed long ago. Jude Law says all the ash and dust reminds him of his home planet. The trick about that, though, is that it could describe pretty much any planet in Star Wars history, so we're like slowly learning more about his character. We'll probably get some more flashbacks in the next couple of episodes. There are a couple funny moments with SM-33 treating him as if he's a young baby, like, come along, baby, don't make me use my strong voice. And like I said, when they're going through the copy of Fern's house, they're starting to realize that maybe this has something to do with the great work, like some grand social experiment with planned communities on 9 different planets. This is also probably to explain why there are suburbs on these different planets, like this is some grand experiment, and that's why you don't see suburbs all over the place in Star Wars movies. Wim wonders if there's been a time jump and they just didn't realize, like they fell asleep like one of the tales of his Knights of the Old Republic stories, which could be a clue for other things in future episodes too. Like there seems like there's a lot of clues that they're trying to plant in his Jedi stories. Back on the ship, there's a couple Easter eggs. Jude Law's ransacking, looking for useful tools and weapons. He finds a holodisc with a recording of the circus performance from the Star Wars Holiday Special, the same one that Neil's siblings were watching, meaning that Neil probably brought this when they came to the ship, like he brought along the circus, like he wanted to watch it again. I guess that'd be kind of like bringing your favorite movies if you're going on a trip, like I'll bring a couple movies to watch. If you haven't watched the Star Wars Holiday Special, it is a trip, like it is a journey for the fandom, but in that, they actually do have this weird-looking circus that they just reused when they did Skeleton Crew. If you don't remember, George Lucas hated it so much that he tried to collect every copy and bar any TV networks or any studios from re-airing the Star Wars Holiday Special till relatively recent history when YouTube was created and people just started re-uploading it to YouTube. So if George Lucas had his way, nobody would ever seen the Star Wars Holiday Special ever again. Harrison Ford actually tells really funny stories about how he tried to get his lawyer to find a way in his contract so that he wouldn't have to do it, but they couldn't find it, so he literally was forced to actually be in the Holiday Special. But then he finds Wim's sock full of Old Republic credits, which he winds up using later in the episode to save their lives. SM-33 attacks him thinking that he's a thief, and it's also meant to connect to the whole storyline where his original captain programmed him to kill anyone looking for Atten in the treasure, so it's really that just kicking in his systems. But then he starts talking about Achrann, and Jude Law clocks that and figures out what's really going on, like, oh, it's in your memory banks, we just need to find a way to actually pull that memory out of you somehow. He's the first person that realizes that SM-33 has been here before. The kids spot a statue of was probably one of the planet's founding members, and this is probably a big reveal too, which is why they didn't have the head, like they didn't want you to see what the face looked like, because it's probably going to be some familiar person from Star Wars history. They reveal Hayden and then the Lord of the Flies situation with the 2 different tribes of people that have risen up. She calls her faction the Toik, and they're basically meant to be the survivors, like the further generations of the original inhabitants before the planet broke into civil war. The only thing in the episode is they never really explained what caused them to devolve into civil war to lead to this situation in present day. She tells them about the Hatton, the rival faction, and I love the way that Wim responds to this, like, wait a minute, are you fighting a group of adults for control of the planet? As if that would be his dream on his home planet to fight the adults for control. He's half right because there are adults on both sides, so technically there are kids fighting adults, but each group is just like 2 different factions of the planet. It's not just kids versus adults. This whole successive generations of like different factions rising up and then fighting each other in this never-ending cycle of war feels very Star Trek, like it feels like a Star Trek episode, where the kids like Neil offer like the moral message like, this is the cost of war, things on my home planet are peaceful, like we live a wonderful existence, things here could be so much better if you weren't always fighting each other. The harder thing to do wouldn't be to kill them in battle, it would be to actually make peace with them. implying that maybe someday, like in a hopeful sense, maybe this planet will also go back to normal. You notice when they hide from the Hatton, they actually jump into the wreckage of one of the buses, the same ones on At-Aden that they just used to ride to school. When the enemy patrol comes by too, they're in what looks like a similar design to the battle droid tanks from the Clone Wars, but remember, this is meant to be from way, way before, like this predates that whole era in the Star Wars timeline, so it's almost like the battle droid tanks were inspired by these older designs. And it kind of looks like the races that make up this group are similar to the races on their home planet of At-Aden. That's why I say that each of the different 9 planets might have just had the same races planted in the same exact communities, the same designs, and it was just a grand social experiment. Like, let's test the effects of putting all these different people on these different planets in the same setting and see what happens to each of them, with terrible things happening to like 8 of the 9 planets. Maybe that's some sort of Star Trek level commentary on society, like people are always driven to try and kill each other ultimately. And the reason why At-Aden is so weird is because they didn't do that. But the twist being, they're still peaceful because they've been living under the yoke of this very controlling fascistic type of society. You can almost think of that as sort of commentary on life inside the Empire versus the New Republic, like which is better, being controlled by an emperor and an empire where your personal freedoms basically don't exist, or total chaos, which sounds like the New Republic. Like things in the Star Wars universe right now under the New Republic seem relatively chaotic. So sort of like a free will versus control situation. Hayden takes them back to her base, which is inside the wreckage of the old school, same copy, same looking school that they also go to on At-Aden, same town center too, which is all complete wreckage. She mentions her whole reason for finding them was they were looking for stolen AOPs. Those are the animals that we've seen walking behind the Hatan patrol. They've actually shown up in Star Wars before. They call her father, the leader of their group, General Strix. There is a Strix from Star Wars Legends. He was a major in the old Sith Empire, but that's not canon anymore, and the way they present him, he likes just a random person that rose up on this planet, like one of the successive generations. And at some point when he dies, Hayden will grow up and become the leader of their group. He sounds like he has no idea about any At-Aden, like in the successive generations, they've also forgotten about it, and they only trade with off-worlders, but don't actually travel off-world themselves. Maybe that will change at the end of the series when the kids sort of reveal all the different secrets and what's been going on At-Aden. They tease the supervisor's tower on this planet is a fallen sanctum that has star maps and data about At-Aden, which we find out about at the end of the episode. And part of the joke here is that they plan to train the kids up and use them as cannon fodder in their raid to try and get the AOPs back. There are a couple of funny moments throughout this, like they use Neil's character to be sort of like the morality of the episode. He's the person that gives Hayden the moral talking to, the moral lesson of the episode. But I love the way that when he decides he doesn't want to practice fighting, she yanks him by his trunk and just drags him outside. She reveals that secret massive gun turret on the roof of the school. Like I said, there's probably a copy of that on the kids' school back on At-Aden. They might wind up using that when the pirates that are chasing Jude Law show up. That just feels like the only reason for Neil to learn that this exists on the roof of the school. Like, oh, my school also has a secret gun turret? I should have used that in the future. They keep asking why the planet devolved into civil war here, but they never really answer the question. We found out that KB is a crack shot, also doesn't totally understand how high fives work. I think they're kind of coding her as being autistic. Maybe that has something to do with why she's wearing all that headgear Lobot style. Wim also having the time of his life, but just not quite ready for the larger guns. Then the big joke is when they force the kids, including Neil, to be cannon fodder, go out on the battlefield, they reveal that Jude Law got the AOPs back by using his Old Republic credits and basically uses them to get the kids back. So essentially he saved their lives, kind of winning them over slowly because they just got to the point where they didn't really trust him at all, so he's slowly winning them over bit by bit. This is like the beginning of his slow redemption on the show. And when I say slow, I mean slow. Like he will probably do a couple underhanded things in the next couple episodes. But this is an example of how he's still fundamentally good or wants to be good and will probably ultimately wind up saving the kids' lives again. They go to this planet's version of the Supervisor's Tower. Like I said, their Supervisor's Tower on At-Aden, their home planet, will probably be the exact same. So everything they find out about this will probably come in handy soon. Neil tries to get Hayden to come with them, but she doesn't want to leave her people. Like I said, they might pay that off at the end of the series when they start to open communications between the planets. Her giving him the kiss on the cheek might also give him some of the courage to talk to his crush back home. That was the big thing, like he was afraid to talk to his crush in the first episode. At the top of the supervisor's tower, they find an empty room with pillars representing each of the 9 jewels of the Old Republic, the 9 planets, first being A2, each of them having coordinates. There's at Arissa, at Erevan, at Akoda. Then they find the destroyed coordinates on the one for at Atten, with the big SM-33 reveal and his former captain's orders. They haven't totally explained why his former captain was trying to hide the location of at Atten and kill the rest of his crew, but this is meant to be similar to the Treasure Island story, also the One-Eyed Willie story from the Goonies movie, where his original captain probably destroyed all knowledge or tried to destroy all knowledge of at Atten so that nobody else would have a chance of stealing the treasure for themselves, like he was trying to protect the treasure for himself. Then I think they're implying that he's actually one of the dead people on the ship. He tried to kill one of the other remaining crew members and was killed during that fight. There might be some other big reveal about who his original captain was, but I think he's meant to be dead in present day. Like, this is meant to be long, long ago, because that ship looked like it was buried under at Atten for a long time. But I think one of the funnier things here, though, is that when they go to the top of the tower, maybe some of you were expecting this, there's basically nothing there. And remember, the kid said, oh, nobody's allowed to go up inside the tower. Even the kid's parents aren't allowed to go up inside the tower. Probably because they would also find data on all the other planets. When they learn the truth, Fern has a meltdown. Wim gives her a little pep talk saying she was always the right person to be the captain, and he gives her the idea to ask the right series of questions and statements to reactivate SM-33's memory, also causing his backup orders from his captain to Hulk out and kill everyone who came around asking about the treasure. Jude Law saves the kids and Neil, again, remember, this is like another strike in his favor, like another reason why they might start to slowly trust him. Using the off switch, causing Neil to faint, such a sweet summer child. Poor Neil was not meant for times of war. And at the beginning of next week's episode, the big trick is fixing SM-33's programming so that they can reactivate him without him trying to kill them on the spot, so they can use his memory banks to slowly get back to at Atten. But what they might have to do, early theory, is they might have to go to one of the other 9 planets and use something that they might find there to get back to at Atten, because I don't think we actually get back to at Atten till like episode 6 maybe. So episode 5 might be them just going to one of the other 9 different planets. We will see what they find on that planet too, but I wouldn't be surprised if the situation on that planet isn't too different from what happened on this planet. They kind of make it sound like SM-33's original captain, though, visited all of the different 9 planets. But there's a bunch of Easter eggs and references, a couple big reveals during the episode. If there's anything that you spotted that I didn't talk about during the video, write it below in the comments. My full episode 5 video will post next week after they release it, and there's a bunch of big stuff happening this week too. We're going to get that full Superman trailer in a couple days. Be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. We're getting a bunch of Superman and Justice League cameos on Creature Commandos episode this week. There's a Dune Prophecy finale, and What If Season 3 episodes also start this weekend. I will try to do videos for everything as soon as possible. Gonna be a real busy week this week and next week. Everybody click here for that brand new Superman trailer. I'll update the link as soon as I post that, and click here for all my Skeleton Crew episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.